Yes, indeed, folks. My name is Tall Biscuit, and you're listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio. We're talking about accessibility. We're talking about casual playstyles, and we're talking about how much one playstyle should perhaps be catered to over the other. Now, this is a natural continuation, at least that's the idea, perhaps a segue, as opposed to the vehicle that you can ride on down the street looking incredibly silly. It is a segue from one segment to the other, and we're going to be talking now about badge loot, and the idea that perhaps, just maybe, there needs to be a little bit more of it. At least that's what the EU forums have to say. And I'll be discussing that in just a moment. Just a quick reminder that towards the end of the show, just before the Illusion of Choice, we'll be doing the live play-by-play segment. And you still have time to download the video. In order to do that, head to our IRC channel. It's irc.mmoirc.com, hash or pound WoW Radio. Alternatively, you can use the chat button at the top of the screen on wcuradio.com. You can also download the video from the front page. There is a link there on the news post, and you can watch along with the commentary. Yes, indeed. It'll only be about 3 minutes, because that's how long the video is for the entry to the Shoutcast contest. But it shall be 3 minutes of epic. Yes! I did just say epic. Almost didn't find it there, but yes, I'm on the ball. Oh yeah. Now, let's talk about the idea of badge rewards. Now, this is a discussion that's been going on the EU forums, and you can go check it out if you wish. Just go to the European forums, go to general discussion, you will find emblems of heroism. This same topic has cropped up numerous times over the past X number of months. What on earth was that? I have no idea. That was menthol lip balm falling off the top of my monitor. Now, as to why menthol lip balm is on top of the monitor, I really don't know. It's up there with my model of the Chancellor of Bears, who is actually a Chancellor of Bears. It's got a top hat, monocle, waistcoat. Very, very professional. Very political. I agree. I think he's a little bit left-wing. Actually, no. If you turn him around this way, I suppose he'd be right-wing. Anyway, let's talk about this. The idea behind this is we've got all of the emblems of heroism loot, so thereby we should be entitled to more. That is the argument being put forth by certain members of the community. And this thread has come up over and over again. And the same argument is peddled over and over again. Now, this thread inevitably leads one way and one way only. And the particular destination of this runaway thread is always the station of fail. That is, hey, let us exchange emblems of heroism for emblems of valor. It always ends up there, and that never ends well. Usually because when I see it, I go red. Literally. I like a bull. I see red, and I charge. And it's horrendous. And all manner of awful things happen. Oh yes. Do not antagonize the bull when it comes to 25-man raiding. That had nothing to do with what I was saying. Now, the issue here is that whether or not heroism should be exchangeable for valor in any respect. This is one way of kind of plugging the gap of, oh, there's not enough heroism gear, so let us have access to valor at a reduced rate. Now, of course, that doesn't solve the problem at all. What you want, what you are looking for, you're looking for something else to spend your time on and spend your emblems on. Say you've got 200, 300 emblems. If you're running all 10-man content on a week-to-week basis, you have probably acquired most, if not all, of the good heroism gear that you need. There is not a massive amount of it. Let's face it. Some of the stuff's great. It's like, in 10-mans, you probably won't get a better offhand than the emblem of the Violet Citadel or whatever it is. In fact, I think that's actually the second best offhand in the game for offensive casters, and the only one better than that, at least according to maxdps.com, was the Surplus Limb, which I am proud to say that I do own. Otherwise, I would have had that 25-man offhand. And this is the same as TBC, if you remember correctly. There were some exceptional offhands available from the TBC Badge of Justice vendor. Now, just because you have run out of gear, does that mean that you are entitled to get access to more? In my opinion, and this is something you've got to bear in mind, that now with the accessibility of raiding the way it is, badges are meant to supplement your gear and plug gaps in it. Say, for instance, you get really unlucky on drops. Say you never get the Surplus Limb. The Surplus Limb has a relatively low drop rate. I've actually only seen it drop twice in my entire raiding career in Wrath. I got one of them, some other guy got the other. Say you never get the Surplus Limb, what are you supposed to do? Hang around with nothing? No, you'll of course take the next best thing. It's the same as crafting at this point in time. Crafting serves a similar purpose. I actually have a crafted item in the form of the Titanium Spell Shock Ring. There is only I believe there are 2 rings that are better for me. One is so similar that it's not even worth buying, and that's, of course, the Kirin Tor ring, which can be acquired for 7.5 bajillion gold. And the other one is an item from Kel'Thuzad 25, which again has a low drop rate and is a high demand, very desirable item because it is best in slot. Best in slot is always desirable, and therefore there was a lot of competition over best in slot when it does drop. So a lot of people will choose to go for the next best thing, and that is very wise. Now, that does not mean that the gear is designed to completely outfit you and bypass raiding entirely. Indeed, you will notice the slots available. Some of them, and this is something I do actually object to, on both tiers, it is possible to get 2 different items of the tier set equivalent to the kind of badge that you are spending. Say, for instance, you've got Emblems of Heroism, you can buy tier 7. It's 10-man/5-man heroic badges, therefore you get 10-man/5-man heroic gear. Yeah, makes sense. Now, in the case of Emblems of Valor, you can get tier 7.5. Tier 7.5 stuff, of course, got from Emblems of Valor, which is got from where? Yes, you guessed it, 25-man instances. Now, of course, that's going to be changing with Ulduar because all of the difficulty is moving up a step. Therefore, 10-man Ulduar is going to give badges of Valor, whereas 25-man Ulduar is going to give a new tier of badges, which is the Emblem of Conquest. Makes perfect sense to me. If you are capable of doing, say, if Ulduar 10-man is equivalent or more difficult to the current 25-man content, then yes, absolutely, it should be giving 25-man level gear. Not even a question about that. Now, the issue is, should you be able to gear yourself entirely out in badge loot? Now, in my opinion, no. You can get 2 pieces of tiered gear, which again, I disagree with. Why do I disagree with that? Well, because tiered gear drops like candy. I mean, seriously, have you not noticed how much drops? Tier gear is easy to get. You do not need to buy it. I suppose the idea was, oh, well, let's get people get to their 4-piece set bonuses as soon as humanly possible. Okay, I kind of get that, but really, what's the point? The funny thing is, I don't actually recall getting... Actually, no. Have I? No, I haven't. I've never got a single piece of tier gear from the actual instance it's supposed to come from. Not one bit. My shoulders came from badges. My chest came from Vault of Archivon. My pantaloons came from Vault of Archivon. My gloves came from heroics, i.e. heroic badges. None of my loot came from where it was supposed to come from, even though I've done that content to death. Now, this is annoying because tier gear is getting taken for offset at the moment. It drops like candy. I could have spent my DKP or done my rolls on something that would have actually mattered, but no, it's actually wasted because you're already doing that content. You're already doing it to death. So by the time that it comes around, it's like, oh, look, it's another tier token that is pretty much guaranteed to drop. Indeed, it is guaranteed to drop. You're guaranteed to get some tier tokens, the kind of which, well, who knows, from these bosses. And yet, by the time you've actually got round to your turn, you've got enough badges to buy the gear anyway. And the other stuff in there's not that great. It's like you've got rings, you've got cloaks, belts, that kind of thing. You're looking at non-major pieces that are required from badges. And that's the way that it's been for a while. That was the way it was initially in TBC, that's the way it is initially now. That changed, don't get me wrong, that did change, but that was with the introduction of Sunwell and the new set of heroic badge gear, which in my opinion was hideously overpowered, and the idea was to try and bridge the gap and get people into this higher tier content because Blizzard were realizing that actually a lot of people are really failing hard at this content, so let's give them a leg up. Now, of course, that is not required at this stage of the game, not even close. Indeed, I do hope that it's not going to be required ever again. So that begs the question, why exactly do people who are unable to do these raids for one reason or another, and I cannot fathom the reason why, really, unless you don't want to. That's the only thing that I could see. Unless you do not want to. Unless you either do not want to raid, or you only want to raid 10-man. Now, if you don't want to raid, then why on earth do you think you should be getting raid-level gear? That doesn't make any sense. What you got to realise is that from the very inception of WoW, from the very start, from the very, very start, day one launch, WoW has all been about risk and reward. It's about doing quests of increasing difficulty and increasing level to get loot of increasing power and increasing item level. Now, the most difficult quests always yielded the best rewards. The big epic quest lines, the one at the end, maybe it was an instance quest where I had to kill a boss, or maybe it was just a 5-man quest that required a group, or required all manner of different stuff. That always gave the best stuff. Why? Because it was more difficult. Now, WoW is not entirely based on skill, don't get me wrong. Not even close. Some of it is, but a lot of it's based on gear and the amount of people that you can bring. And, of course, to some degree, the amount of time that you have to dedicate, although I would say that that has now decreased significantly with the release of Wrath of the Lich King. Now, whether or not you think that's a good thing depends entirely on your point of view and your playstyle, and I would say that all your opinions in that regard are valid, unless they consist of whining, crying, and bickering. So, why is it, again, that these people need that kind of stuff? Why is it that they think they can simply annihilate one of the core bases of the system behind not only WoW, but RPGs for the past 30 years? I.e., the bigger the dragon you beat, the bigger the sword you get. It's that simple. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. Why would it work any other way? That doesn't make any sense. It's like you argue, right, I am the janitor of a company. I'm bringing in RL. This is a really bad idea, but I'm going to use an analogy anyway. Eat me. What can I say? You are the janitor of a major company. You have spent years and years and years cleaning and working 3 times as hard as the rest of the guys, yet you still get paid way less than the lawyer, the CEO, the consultant. And you wonder why. And the answer is quite simple. It doesn't matter how long you're spending. It doesn't matter how much time you are dedicating. The job that you are doing is of a lower tier, a lower skill level, therefore the reward is lower. That's the point. That is the whole point. You cannot have 25-man level gear if you are not willing to do 25-man difficulty level content. Now, if you are someone who just wants to do 10-mans, well, Old WoW is your salvation. Because you're saying, well, I only want to do 10-mans, but I can't get access to Valor gear. Now you can. Because you are doing something that is difficult enough to justify it. Now, I would say at this point that the difficulty disparity between 10 and 25-man is not great enough. If they are looking, and that is obviously what they're looking for. It must be. That must be what they're going for, because otherwise they wouldn't be giving this new tiered level of badges which give better rewards. Obviously they want the 25-man to be harder, and that's why it reaps greater, higher item level rewards. Now you are going to get access to the Valor stuff, because you're going to be doing an instance which is harder. Yeah? It is harder than Nax 10-man, it is harder than Sarth 10-man, it is harder than Malagos 10-man, and it's certainly harder than VO8 10-man, and if it's not, then I'm quitting the game right now. Let's face it. And you'll get access to all of this stuff. So it is a boon to 10-man raiders. It is giving legitimacy to the 10-man playstyle, and I have no issues with that at all. I am not a 10-man playstyle kind of guy. I used to raid 40-mans, and I kind of still miss them to some degree, and indeed, I still now raid 40-mans back with Arcanist Belt. We're doing 40-man bosses. It's fun. I enjoy it. But I've accepted that time is now long past, but I am okay with 25-mans. They are sufficiently large. But I don't understand. I cannot fathom why people whine and cry and say, well, just because it takes a bunch of time, we should be able to get it. It's like, well, someone actually suggested this, 10-to-1 ratio. Huh? No, kid you not, 10-to-1 ratio, Emblems of Heroism to Emblems of Valor conversion. They suggested this. And they're like, well, it would take us 250 emblems to get something that would normally take 25. It's fair because of that. Well, for one thing, that's entirely missing the point. I assume that if you're wanting more of this kind of heroism gear, that you are looking for stuff that is more, quote, casual friendly. We've already established that casual players don't exist, so it must be people who either don't raid or only raid 10-mans, and you want more gear. Now, for people that don't raid and say they don't have the time, bearing in mind that this is the same kind of group of people that are asking for more rewards. These people kind of mix together. These are the entitled casuals. These are the casuals that I don't have a lot of time for. These are the people who basically demand more and more and more because they pay the same subscription, therefore should get the same content, yet don't really want to work the same for it, which is kind of unfortunate. These guys want this level of gear, and they want to spend all that time getting it, and they wonder, well, why don't you just raid then? Seriously, if you have enough time to gather 250 Emblems of Valor for a friggin' belt or whatever, then why exactly, on God's green earth, I cannot fathom this, would you not just raid? I imagine it must be because they have this outdated idea that raiding actually takes a lot of time anymore. It doesn't. We've established this now. It does not take a lot of time anymore. My guild clears all of Wrath in 4 hours, and so do many other thousands of guilds. All of it. We do all the 25-man content in 4 hours. That's all it is. We can split that over 4 evenings. 1 hour an evening, or we can do it all in 1 evening. No problem. Blitz it. Why is that an issue? Don't tell me the casual players can't dedicate 4 hours a week to WoW, because if that's the case, stop playing. You're playing the wrong game. MMOs are designed for people with excess time on their hands. Why do you think we've got the stigma of being all basement virgins? That's the point. WoW didn't suddenly change that. Yes, it made a dent in it, but time is still required. So no more. I don't want to see you getting Emblems of Valor content, because difficulty and effort equals reward. And that's been the way for 30 years, and you're not going to stop it now. My name is Total Biscuit, and you're listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio. I'll be right back after this. Enjoy.